have seen the torch of freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this wonderful country of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face and have faced for several decades now, and that affects so many aspects of our lives, from our personal relationships, our marriages, our families, our community relations, our politics, our business affairs, all kinds of social issues. The character issue affects it all, because character does matter. It matters perhaps more than anything else. And we're witnessing that on a grand stage and in a very big way presently in our country. And I'm going to have a lot of things to say about that tonight, but I hope you, if you have some things you want to share, will also join the conversation. And the numbers to call are 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. And if you have problems with that number, the alternate number to call is 501-258-8326. That's 501-258-8326. We've had problems with that first line, as you may know, so got a backup number for you to call and join the conversation. We're going to be talking quite a bit today about narcissism once again and its role in the difficulties that we're seeing play out in such a grand way, in such a disheartening way on the national stage. I'm going to be talking about a few different things today with regard to that, getting in the political arena a little bit more than we typically do on this program, because it's important, because it's so important, and because the character issue is on full display. There's been a lot of criticism of our current president because the narcissism with him is so patently obvious. And I have resisted, as you know, I've talked about this many times, I have resisted doing what so many seem to be willing to do these days, and that is to violate professional ethics, to speak sensationalistically about our president and his character. I won't do that. And it's not just because it's unethical. We have a lot to rethink. We have a lot to rethink in psychiatry and psychology. Just about everything, just about every kind of human behavior you can think of right now has been transformed in some way into a disease by the dominant medical model. And when most people, the danger there is that when most people think about a disease, they think about a condition not self-caused. They think about, they conceptualize in their mind some foreign entity invading a body and causing some havoc, or a system going wrong in the body and causing some problems, and then looking for a way to remedy that. But when it comes to human behavior, things are a lot more complicated than that. People make choices, and those choices have consequences. And the values upon which we make those choices, the beliefs that we hold deep in our heart, the attitudes that we have toward the world, toward others in the world, how we see ourselves, how we see others, and how we see our relationship with the rest of the world. That's all a matter of personal responsibility. And what we're witnessing play out so dramatically, not just presently in the current administration, but what we've seen for several decades in almost all facets of our life, is the effect of this culture that not only enables character dysfunction, but actually rewards it in so many ways. I said I was going to speak about a few different issues today. I'm going to talk about two in particular. One of them is the healthcare debate that's been going on, which is really a false debate. You know, it's been going on for a long time. And why I want to talk about it is because it so clearly relates to the character issue. You know, a lot of free societies on the planet have decided that it's best for the welfare of all citizens to provide access to good health care. It's just one of those things, you know, in the preamble to our Constitution, we talk about promoting the general welfare and ensuring tranquility, domestic tranquility. For us to function well, we need to be healthy. And we live in a country where we have long prized individual responsibility. So there was a time when people took those responsibilities seriously. They recognized that they needed to take care of themselves and to take care of themselves well, to eat well, sleep well, work hard, play hard, balance their lives out, and do the best they could to be healthy. But all of us are subject to those catastrophic events, those accidents of nature, those unintended, unforeseen circumstances that deal us a severe blow and put us in a disadvantaged place that no reasonable person could get out of. And that's where insurances came into play. So, back in the day, and I can remember the day, I'm old enough to remember the day. Back in the day, if you had a cough or a cold or stomach ache or whatever the case may be, and you needed to see the doctor for a regular visit, this was something you had to plan for. These are the inevitable things, and you didn't expect anybody else to pick up the tab, and physicians, by and large, were not uncommonly wealthy. They made a decent living, but they were not uncommonly wealthy. And they would even come to your house and check things out, prescribe an antibiotic. You paid for the visit, and it was affordable. And there were two reasons why it was affordable. Number one, the physician knew that they weren't going to get any business if they priced themselves out of the market, because people would just weather it out. You know, colds do go, they do run their course, Even infections. There was a time we didn't have antibiotics. So we took care of those kinds of things. We planned for them. We worked them into the budget. But there were always those kind of catastrophes that could happen that would break the budget, anybody's budget, even the most reasonable saver. And for those things, we had insurance. And the insurance itself was affordable because there was a vast pool of people paying into it. And those rare, extraordinary events that would cost a lot of money were just that. They were rare. And so many people contributing a modest sum to the pot could build quite a war chest at an insurance company. And they would have money on hand to dole out for those rare emergencies. And not only that, because the government recognized that these companies have an obligation not just to make money, but to pay those benefits in time of need, those companies were very tightly regulated. Their profits were regulated too. They had an opportunity to reel in a lot of money, a whole lot of money. And so they were expected to behave responsibly, and they were pretty tightly regulated. Their profits were regulated too. They had a right to make a living. There were executives and middle managers and line staff had a right to feed themselves, put food on their table at their homes and whatnot. That was all reasonable. But its obscene profits was not the goal. Goal was to operate a modest business and provide for those rare emergencies. And it worked. It worked. And I can remember as a young adult paying my own way when I first entered the labor force on my own. I can remember paying less than $15 a month. Less than $15 a month. I think at its worst, before insurance morphed into something else entirely, I was paying $30 a month. That was much later. But then something really insidious happened. Insurance companies, third-party payers, became the payers for just about everything because some companies, some larger companies, were offering benefits as an incentive to individuals in lieu of paying them more in a basic salary. They had these incentives, and sometimes these incentives were negotiated through union bargains too. Insurance started paying for everything. Physicians and hospitals and everyone got used to third-party payers paying off like a slot machine. And boy, did they start building industries. And with some of the receipts, they innovated. They got new hardware, new equipment, can do wondrous things. So now we have a system where we have a great deal of excellent care for just about everything you can think of. But individuals don't feel the pinch as much. Where they feel it is in the pinch of the premiums, because they're not paying for all the things they used to pay out of pocket. The third-party payer is picking up everything. Less deductible and less copays. And now those have gotten outrageous. Times have changed. And the greed that has driven it has been on both sides. So we have these characters in Washington now trying to negotiate a fix to a system that is so horribly broken, it's beyond repair. We have a huge decision to make. We have a huge choice to make. And that is whether or not there even should be an insurance industry making obscene profits, more than they've ever made before, in this business of healthcare. We have a huge decision to make. You see, these companies are always going to make profits. And here's where the character question comes into question. I'm going to talk about two of our leaders here. Our last president really wanted to end the insurance industry and have a single-payer healthcare system. How he was going to do that. And he admitted this. He had a plan. It was a pretty surreptitious plan. And therein always lies the problem. That's where we start getting to character issues. The surreptitious plan was that you'd have all these competing insurance companies in pools competing for coverage, and then you'd have a strictly government-run option as part of the mix. And you could choose. You could choose one of these free market plans, or you could choose the single-payer government plan. That was the plan. And what the president knew at that time is that in time, there would have been no competition because the other entities have to make a profit. So what would have happened over time is that more and more people would have realized that they were getting more bang for the buck, so to speak, on the government plan than on any possible free market plan. And that would be the slow death of the insurance industry and the birth of a single payer system. That was the plan. It was a surreptitious plan. And the fact that it was surreptitious is a character issue. Now, it didn't fly because there was such resistance that the president had to cave on that government option in order to get a few holdouts from his own party to ram through in reconciliation the plan now affectionately known as Obamacare. So, the best laid plans did not go so well. And what's worse, because there was no government option, and because all these deals had been cut for all these insurance companies to compete in the marketplace with various plans, partially subsidized by the government through an indirect means, and by expanding Medicaid coverage and taking the most risky folks and the lowest income folks off the backs of the insurance companies, well, what happened was they ended up making money hand over fist, restricting benefits, raising premiums, raising deductibles, and paying out less even in claims, and all the while medical costs are going up like crazy. This is what happens when you get into bed with snakes. You know, what will happen when you get into bed with a venomous snake is sooner or later, that snake is going to bite you. The best thing is not to invite the snake into your bed. It's an unholy alliance. And what's taking place now is even more reprehensible. Partly the principle, I guess, is well-founded in the fact that what was devised is not working. It could not work. It wasn't designed to work. It was designed to fail. The only thing that might have worked was the surreptitious plan, that if it had been straightforward, if our former president had the character to be honest about what he thought we needed to do, and made the case successfully to the American people, we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be in this mess. It always comes down to character. The truth is simply, Lincoln said this, and actually he quoted ancient Greek fable. Honesty is simply the best policy, because in the end, it pays off. Just tell the truth. Nobody does it anymore. Everybody's got an angle. Everybody's got a hidden agenda. Nobody wants to tell the truth. It doesn't serve their immediate needs or their desires. You know, the rules for decency of character are really pretty simple. They're really very straightforward. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't make promises you can't keep. There are so many very simple, straightforward rules for being a decent person. And there are so many excuses that we can come up with for violating those rules. And the excuse our last president came up with was it wouldn't be possible to sell anything, and it wouldn't be possible to get a foot in the door, and it wouldn't be possible to do anything and get at least some additional people covered if we had just told the truth. So we did what we could. It always pays to tell the truth. Even if people aren't ready for it, it never pays to deceive. And what's going on now with this president and this administration is even worse. We have a decision to make. And the decision is, should there be profit when it comes to providing people the means to pay for their health care? And most other free societies have decided no. Most other free societies have suggested that the society itself should form the pool for providing the reimbursement. That everybody pitches in and forms one pool administered by the government. There's one entity, one payer, and everybody has access, regardless of their economic station. And they decided that it was in their best interest for the stability and the overall progress of the country. So we face that decision. But in facing that decision, I am so very fearful of what will happen when we finally do make the right choice. Because we have such a character problem in this country. We have so many folks who behave so irresponsibly. And there's a cost to that. For example, we have so many people who abuse drugs. Nobody holds a gun to anyone's head and gets a person started. And now I know there are cases where a person is legitimately prescribed a powerfully addictive substance. And then there is that slippery slope that occurs where the person can't wean themselves. But it's also a character issue that even in those circumstances, when a person knows that they can't do without a substance, and therefore they start looking for something else because their prescription is run out or whatever the case may be, that's the time to get help. It's a matter of personal responsibility and integrity. But where I was going with this is that because we have so many people behaving so irresponsibly, and because so many of our major health problems have a lot to do with lifestyle and with irresponsibility within that lifestyle. If we ever do finally agree that we should pool our resources together and help ensure that we all have access to health care, once we know it's going to be paid for, my fear is that because there are so many of us who take so much for granted and who think, oh, all right, I'm going to be, I don't have to be responsible. I don't have to watch what I eat. I can contract type 2 diabetes. Once we have enough people doing that, we're going to find out with a big shock just how different it is for the United States of America to try and ensure all of its citizens, or try to assure all of its citizens getting health care at a reasonable cost. We're going to find out just how different it is here compared to some other places. Where people are much more conscious of their individual responsibility. We're all in this together. You know, this is the great, great lesson of life. We don't have to like it. We don't even have to recognize it. But whether we like it or not, or whether we recognize it or not, we are all in this together. We are all connected, whether we like it or not. Every single one of us. We are all connected. Everything each one of us does affects the other. Everything each one of us does affects the other in some way. No person is an island. So if we're going to make it, we have to recognize that we are all connected and that we all affect each other. And we have to restore some sense of responsibility, personal integrity, so that we can truly have a pool of resources only for those dire emergencies and special cases that nobody can predict. Then a universal healthcare system in our country would work. And it would take the profit out of that part of our system. But we have so far to go to that. There are so many vested interests, and it's always about the money. It is always about the money. These companies, their stockholders, and their executives have made more money in the last 8 years than they have ever made, and by a lot. And that all happened under the guise of providing a fairer system to more people and covering more people. You know what they say about the road to hell? Paved with good intentions. The intention was good. The result? The fat got fatter. The rich got richer. And the costs are astronomical. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Some of the ways that the current Congress has considered handling this have not panned out. But shame on them all. Shame on them all for not telling the truth. You know, we had one person, one, who was willing at least to tell the truth. That was Bernie Sanders. He said right from the get-go, he said, it's time for a giant pool of resources and a single-payer system. Medicare for everybody. Its time has come, he said. He didn't make any bones about it. He said we should consider health care a human right, essential to the welfare of a free state that depends on its people to be healthy and functioning in order to make everything work. It's in the general interest. It's in the public interest. It's in the general welfare of the country. It promotes the general welfare of the country to have folks healthy and to have them have access. So he said we ought to change our thinking about this. And he laid out his way of thinking. We should consider this a right and afford it to everybody. And this would not have sat well with some powers that be. And it didn't sit well with either establishment in either party. And the establishment in his own party didn't want him for a lot of reasons. And they stacked the deck against him, resource-wise. They pretended they weren't, but that was a lie too. As the fictional character Dr. Robert House used to say on that series House, that was a great series, by the way. I really enjoyed that series. But as he used to say, everybody lies. You can just expect it. Everybody lies. So we're in this mess right now. It's not going to get any better. Folks are playing dirty. The folks that want this current system to fail, well, it's already failing, but the folks who want it to fail even more miserably have already done some things to help it fail. And in time, it will fail. Things will get much worse than they are right now. In the meantime, while it's getting worse, people suffer. People suffer. We have to have an honest discussion if we're going to have a fair debate on the issues. We have some major decisions to make, and we need to be square with one another. There's a reason for not lying. It hurts people. It even hurts you in the end. One wonders sometimes why we do it. Why we do it. So that's the one issue that I wanted to address today. We have a great debate on the horizon, and it's not going anywhere fast because nobody's telling the whole story and because everybody's got an angle and everybody's got a dog in a particular fight. Everybody's got a hidden agenda. If all of the folks on the left would just say, everybody should be covered. This needs to be a right, and we really just need to get the profit out of that part of reimbursing for services and provide everybody access. They'd be honest about that and move in that direction and be a whole different story. Campaign on that. Be a whole different story. But there's too many people in bed with snakes. I know there are a lot of people that don't think it's inherently evil to have these companies managing things. But there are certain areas of life where we need to be reasonable about the profits. The way our system works, everything works on an exchange basis and profit drives everything. And when there's fair competition, we usually get our money's worth and then some. We have so much competition, for example, in the fast food industry, that really for very modest sums, most people can pretty well ensure that they can eat. And even those who are struggling and for one reason or another don't have the means can get the assistance that they need. There's no legitimate reason, really, for anyone to go hungry. And it could be the same way in healthcare. Were it not for all the inherent unfairness, we're not going to be able to resolve this issue unless we have a fair and honest discussion. And I don't know who's got the character to start that discussion. I only know of one person who was speaking up from the very beginning about their solution. Like it or not, at least they were being honest about what they thought the solution should be and what they were willing to advocate for. So enough on that issue. The other issue I really wanted to talk about tonight is is how things are going in our current administration and the character issues that plague it. I've talked about this before. As I mentioned many, many times, I'm not going to be one of those professionals who violates professional ethics with sensationalistic charges, like some have suggested, that the president has a serious mental health disorder that's going to cause great danger. Well, the president does have certain character traits that are very problematic but it doesn't take a PhD in either psychology or a degree in rocket science to see what those character traits are. This is a guy who overestimates his wisdom, his capabilities, his intelligence, his base of knowledge. It's not that he doesn't have some moxie and some smarts. It's not the question. It's the exaggeration. Some people truly are legends in their own mind. Their experience has helped shape that. Maybe they've amassed a small fortune through their wits. And you see, for folks who are narcissistically inclined, there's never any room for a higher power or for anything bigger than themselves to have a role in their success. Wayne Dyer, the author of Your Erroneous Zones and Pulling Your Own Strings and a few other books like that, prolific author back in the 60s and 70s. He says that when you look at the word ego and you make a anagram out of it, that you can you say that it stands for edging God out. And the God does not have to be this image of the Judeo-Christian God, a personal God acting in a kind of anthropomorphic manner, running things. Basically, that concept is for any bigger reality than you, taking nothing else into consideration. The bigger the ego, the less room there is for considering that anything else had a role. Narcissistically inclined individuals pay lip service. They'll adulate others, and they'll give credit to others, and they'll feign appreciation for others. But in their heart of hearts, they just know. They don't just think. They just know in their heart of hearts that it's their brilliance that is doing it all. Their special characteristics that is responsible for it all. And of course, therefore, if anything ever goes wrong, because it can't be them, it has to be someone else's fault. It has to be some other reason. So what we're witnessing right now, and it is dangerous, what we're witnessing is incompetence in a particular arena, the likes of which we've not seen. This is one area where these days, given the complexity of the issues, this is one area where you just can't know too little, where you just can't come to the job lacking certain skills. There are plenty of other enterprises where you can be a big success and where you can make tons of money and not have to have the wisdom, the knowledge base, or the skills. But when it comes to being president of the United States, and being an effective one, you have to bring certain qualities of character to the table. In the end, we always get the government we deserve because we decide who will represent us and who will lead us. And we have long ago decided that we will put people in office who we think, who we pray, will do our bidding, who will no longer let us feel disenfranchised. And because of that, a demagogue's job really is easy. It's very straightforward. It's all a matter of salesmanship. You just tell the folks what they're dying to hear somebody say, because they're tired of feeling disenfranchised. They're tired of feeling beaten down. They're tired of feeling used and exploited. They're tired of being not heard. You just tell those folks what they want to hear. And you're going to get votes. You don't have to have the knowledge. You don't have to have the skills. You don't have to have the wisdom. And you don't have to have the character to win. All you've got to do is say the right things to those who feel disenfranchised in one way or another. You just lie. You play on people's fears, their insecurities, their wants, their needs, their desires, their frustrations. You exploit. And some people have the stomach to do that, and that's what reflects the pathology in their character. This is not an illness. It's not an affliction. It's a choice. It's a choice to put self and self-interest above everything else. And it's a choice when it comes to self-image and whether or not we respect, whether or not the person respects any kind of higher power, any kind of higher power. The pathology comes from in the heart having no room for a higher power. So I've been writing about this on my blog at manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com. Either URL will take you to the same place, www.drgeorgesimon.com, that's drgeorgesimon.com, or manipulative-people.com. Either URL will take you to the same place. I've got a lengthy series of articles going right now on the topic. And it's what I write about in my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, Character Disturbance, the Phenomenon of Our Age, the Judas Syndrome, and my book with co-author Kathy Armistead, How Did We End Up Here? And I can tell you how we ended up here. How we ended up here as a country, and how many of you ended up where you have ended up in your failed relationships. How we ended up here is that we made a decision that character didn't matter. That we weren't going to put it first. That we were going to put all kinds of other things first, and that we were going to become comfortable with the idea that everyone has character flaws, and therefore it's kind of a lost cause. And so long as we get what we think somebody else can give us, or so long as we think we can get what we want, we're appeased. Well, we're getting exactly what we asked for. When we made the decision that character wasn't going to matter anymore, we invited all the consequences of that. This happens in relationships all the time. People get together, they know right from the beginning, many times, or many times they simply don't pay any attention to. You know, I'll ask somebody who's married someone they've just married somebody who's been married for the third time, who's marrying for the third time, been married twice before, how well they went into depth about why those other marriages failed with their prospective new partner. And they'll say something like, well, it just wasn't the right person, just didn't work out. Well, why didn't it work out? Person's not doing very well, keeping an intimate relationship going, the prognosis is not good. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Worth taking a look into, don't you think? Worth having a little scrutiny. It will come back to bite you. There's no question about that. So we have the choice here. We have a huge choice before us. We can decide that character does matter again. We really can. And once we make it matter, my friend Tracy Shorn, she says, we can make it cool again. We can make it cool again to have character and to expect character too. And once we do, things will begin to turn around. We can demand honesty, complete honesty. We can demand fairness. We can demand accountability. We can make integrity matter. We can even rediscover what it means. I'll have more to say on this topic next time. I'm so glad you tuned in. I hope you tune in again next week for another edition of Character Matters. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. George Simon. See you next time.
Check.